Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Michael Crane, and today I got an exceptional guest with me, Amy Bream. She's an adaptive athlete, motivational speaker, and overall just inspirational human being. And honestly, I'm so excited to have you here, Amy. And just it's crazy how we connected. I want to share this real quick before I give you a chance to speak. But Amy basically knows my wife's cousin. We just found out that they went to school together. They were actually roommates. Now you're in Nashville, right? Are you both in Nashville still?
Yeah.
And so like we got connected through a family friend or a family member. And now I start looking at your Instagram and I see just that Andy Frisella follows you. I see you're a first form athlete. Obviously I see the adversity you've gone through, but then nothing stopped you. I love that. Right away when I went on your page, I was like, dang, I want to learn more about her, because that's the reason I created this podcast. That's my whole story, is like overcoming adversity and no limits in this life. So when I get to meet somebody else who shares that mentality and has demonstrated it through their actions, I love it. So thank you for being here first and foremost.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. So I'm excited.
So let me ask you, first of all, how old are you right now, Amy?
I'm 32.
Okay, 32. And let's talk about your journey to this point in your life. Like, I see that you're super fit. Your content online is really good too. Like, I love your content. I love the way that you've taken the adversity in your life and you own it and you use it, kind of like we were talking about a little bit ago, as a way to stand out in a positive way. And you use it as leverage. I think that's important. I don't think that anything in life we should feel bad about, ashamed about, or let stop us, And a lot of people, though, with much lesser circumstances, severe circumstances, do, right? So I want to get into that. I want to get into the mentality that you've had to utilize to elevate yourself in life. And let's talk about, though, like growing up, being born with one leg. Like, I want to talk about that because that's important for people to understand. They can't see you right now, but if you go on Amy's Instagram and you watch the way she's lifting and how fit she is, you're going to be like, dude, I'm never making an excuse ever again. So I just want to cover that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. It's funny because even now, if people that knew me growing up saw my Instagram presence, they would probably be pretty shocked. I've changed quite a bit since moving to Nashville. I moved here in 2014. But my childhood, I had a good childhood. Like, my family, my friends, I had a great support system. And I actually never had an amputation. I was born with a birth defect. And so right from the get-go, I had a prosthesis as soon as it was time to learn how to walk. And again, there was nothing necessarily negative about it. And in a lot of ways, being born without my right leg helped me because it helped me give a natural resilience. If I wanted to move, I had to have the mindset of let's figure out how, rather than can I do it? And again, I think it gave me kind of an edge going into my early adulthood because I knew that, like, I expected things to be hard, if that makes sense. And that's something that you kind of have to train yourself in. There's might be people that are naturally susceptible to that mindset, but even so, you have to practice that kind of mindset. And I had lots of practice with it as a kid. But definitely in the world of sports and athletics, I was very self-conscious still. I wanted to stay in my arena that felt comfortable to me, which was music. And, gym class was my nightmare. I didn't do any kind of sports growing up. I could probably count on one hand the amount of like public fitness classes that I had ever taken. Like, I didn't ever go to the gym in public. I barely worked out at all, honestly. And then I moved to Nashville. And it just started this journey for me. In 2015, a friend told me about this boxing gym that wasn't like sparring or anything. It was just more fitness oriented. And I thought it sounded fun and different. I was literally going to the gym for like 10 minutes, a couple times a week, if that. And it was just kind of a necessary evil in my mind. But I wanted to carry myself differently. I didn't like my lack of confidence in myself in certain areas. And so I just started going. And I think the natural resilience that I had as a child helped me not quit. And it started this intentional but unexpected at the same time journey that led me eventually to weightlifting and to CrossFit, to where I am today. That when I started, I had specific ideas of like, I don't want to quit. I want to try new things, but I didn't have a specific end goal in mind. And I think it was the best thing for me because it kept my mind open to whatever happened. And here we are. So nutshell of, like how I got here to what I'm doing today. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey so far.
I mean, I love what you said about as a kid, you expected things to be hard. I think
Mhm.
that's such a great mindset to have. I think a lot of people try to avoid difficult things, but
Mm.
when you expect things to be hard and you're like, I'm not going to let this stop me, this is just how it is, you develop a different type of grit and resiliency. And
Mhm.
I think, I don't know who it was. I saw an athlete. I think it might have been even a recent clip from the Olympics, but they were saying like essentially kids who have adversity growing up, they're at an advantage and later on in life versus people that don't face those tests. Because let's be honest, like for most people, when you're a kid, you're somewhat sheltered or things are pretty easy. And then you get thrust into the real world. And a lot of people, they're not equipped to handle adversity and all the stuff that takes place as an adult. So for me, I grew up with a lot of adversity and I know it prepared me to be successful later on in life. Sounds like the same thing for you. Would you say so?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely still had learning curves as an adult, and I had to apply what I learned in certain areas to other areas, if that makes sense. So, I knew that's partly why I love working out so much. There's such a mind body connection that happens where you physically feel your body resisting, and you understand that you have to attach a mentality to not allow yourself to quit. And so I love that tangibility that you get in a workout of pushing through and then seeing what's on the other side. But that same, mindset spills into every single area of life, which that is what I've really worked on. I guess you could say training myself in the last, especially I'd say the last 10, 15 years of my life of how can we apply, we know what this feels to be, physically difficult. Now let's train our mindset to bring that into, career, relationships, whatever it would be.
Yeah. And I think that's why fitness is the most important habit to establish if you want to be a peak performer in life. Like I can't think of anything else other than fitness that has so many widespread benefits and can have that positive impact on other areas of life. Like there's nothing that even compares. I mean, you develop discipline, confidence, you do understand the power of your mind and that you can push through adversity and it makes you a better version of yourself. It really does.
Yeah.
So so that's something that's important to pass on to people who don't understand the benefits of fitness. For instance, that's why coaching is so important in speaking, and we'll get into that right now because that's something you're passionate about. But there's a
Mhm.
lot of people in corporate America, a lot of business owners, a lot of people that are spending so much time focused on success and growing their business and making money, and they're neglecting their health, and they don't realize like if they prioritize their health and utilize the gym as a tool, they'd be better off in their businesses. They'd be better off at home. Do you speak to people about that? Like, do you share why you love fitness so much, and how do you pass on that message to others?
I do. I definitely speak about fitness. I like to speak on specifically the power of consistency and of like, as basic and cliche as it sounds, the decision not to give up. Because
Yeah.
truly, people can, I've heard so many times, and I've used this before in my life where it's like, well, it wasn't meant to be, or you tried it and it didn't work out. It's like, well, if you chose to not keep going, like the result is like, no matter what, even if, you have to pivot, you have to change things up, as long as you decide not to quit, you will eventually get to somewhere great.
Yeah.
And when I speak, it's very easy for me. I find fitness to be the easiest and most universal parallel that like everyone can kind of understand. Even if you're not in the gym, you understand what it feels like for your body to physically be tired, even if it's from a long walk. And so
Yeah.
they understand that metaphor, I guess you could say, the parallel of, if you keep with something, if you walk 10 minutes a day, eventually you can walk 30 minutes a day and it won't, like, you won't be as tired as when it was when you first started at 10. And I find, I use clearly, like when I like to speak, I use my story as an illustration of what happened because I wasn't anticipating really any of the opportunities that started. They naturally came out as a progression of me choosing not to quit in the gym.
I
um,
love that so much. It's
so
so true. I think I'm wearing the shirt. Let me see if is there writing. What does this say on the back? Can you read that?
says the man who refuses to quit cannot be stopped.
So it's the man or woman, but right, this is how we
Mhm.
design it. So that's literally one of my mantras because what you said is so true. the magic happens in your life when you just continuously show up and give your best effort. Like, we
Mhm.
don't always know what it's going to look like in 5 years. We have goals and a vision and ideas of what we want things to look like. But I'm telling you, I've been on this journey since I came home for 6 years, and really 4 years in the space of coaching and speaking. And the coolest and craziest things have just transpired, meaning
Mhm.
people have come into my life, opportunities have materialized just by showing up every day and giving my best effort. But
Mhm.
this is the hardest thing for people, because there might be stretches of time where you're showing up and nothing's happening. And you're going, damn, like I'm doing all the right stuff. What's going on? Almost like, when am I going to catch my break? And
Yeah.
the compounding effect is real. When you show up and give your best effort and you can maintain a positive attitude, like, that's when the magic happens. And so, but most people can't do that, Amy. What would you tell somebody who struggles with consistency, who
Mm.
can't do that? They can't sustain that attitude and that daily grind for long periods of time. And like, how would you get through to them to help them to understand the importance of it and how to implement it?
Mhm. The first thing I would say is you have to figure out your why, and it needs to be beyond something like concrete, I would say. And for me, again, not to constantly bring it back to fitness, but I used to go to the gym, and it's certainly wonderful to have health and fitness goals. Like, you want to lose a certain amount of weight, and like, I applaud those things, and I think those are good things. However, if that's the only reason that you're in it, because you're like, I know that I need to lose this weight, period, and that's it. For me, that's the fastest form of motivation to fly out the window when I'm tired, because I'm like, well, I figured out how to live life at this weight or whatever, like, I'll be fine. But when you have a bigger picture of why you're doing it, I don't like how I carry myself. I don't look that I don't look people in the eye when I talk to them. I don't like this feeling of lacking confidence, or, if you have a family and you can't keep up with the demands of having kids or anything like that. I think those whys are much easier to hold on to in the dry spells, because there's going to be a lot of them. And I think so often when we find them, people take a lack of immediate return as a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's like a sign that I should quit now. But it's those times that you really lean into, because you realize, I heard someone say this on Instagram the other day, of like, when you find out just how hard it is, switch your mindset from, oh, woe is me, I have to do this, from everyone has to go through this. And if I can lean into how hard this is, like, I'm that much further above the curve, because I know that, like, it's really hard for the whole general population to lean into how difficult this is for this extended amount of time. So yeah, I would say one, like, leaning into or understanding what your why is. And the second thing is, let go of your ego. I think that's a huge thing, because people so often, they want to think of their big goal or their dream, and, they want to lose 30 pounds. And so, when you're tired and it's day 8 and you've worked out 4 days in a row for the first time in 6 months, and you've lost a pound, 29 more to go, when you're that tired and sore, you just want to stop. But it's like, that's the power of consistency and small things. And it's like, yes, you can have that goal in mind, but understanding your big why and acknowledging where you're at now, letting the ego go, and like showing up to do the smallest thing, to do the next right thing, like right now
Yeah.
in this moment. And I think if people were not so set on like going from 0 to 100 and starting from 0 to 10, they'd get to 100 a lot more often over
Yeah.
time.
Those are great points there. I think a lot of people, they put tons of pressure on themselves, and then they're worried about failing or worried about what other people are going to say about them. Right.
Mhm.
So like, that right there is it's your ego. You're trying to protect yourself. So, that's really important. Like, if you start small and build big over time, you build so much momentum, but for me, like what you said, the first thing is so important. You have to have something deeper inside of you that drives you to
Mhm.
do the daily actions required to achieve your goals. Like, the working out, that's surface level. Like, the eating of the right food, the nutrition, that's surface level. Deep down inside, why do you want to be that person? What life is that going to create for you? Usually it stems from knowing some form of pain in the past of not doing those things as well. Like, for me, everything that drives me today is to not experience the regret I had early on in life when I made all the wrong decisions. I made all the wrong decisions. I didn't become the person I wanted to be. And I had to sit there with those consequences for years and really suffer because of it. So every day, it doesn't matter. I don't care about money and status and all that stuff secondary. I have to be okay with who I see when I look in the mirror. When I go to sleep at night, I have to be proud of the way I lived. And deep down inside, that's the most important thing. So like, what is your why? What is your why and where does it stem from?
I think something that a big part of me, I should say a mantra, I guess, that I say often is it's not about how hard it is. It's about what you're capable of. And I think me discovering what I'm truly capable of, no matter what the circumstances may look like, has brought me more joy than anything else. And, you know, there's other like facets that have come with it. Like I've absolutely loved, you know, being able to speak with other amputees and to understand the power of like, of showing an example of this is what life could be. Even if you don't want to compete, want to be in CrossFit, whatever, like you don't have to settle for being in pain or for like limiting yourself. That is sincere, like joy of getting to have those conversations with people and teach them that. But it's almost, again, it's almost like a bonus. Like I think for me, when I'm finding my motivation, it has to be, you know, like within myself of like, I actually am in love with the process of figuring out what I'm capable of and like pushing the limits and boundaries in the gym and beyond it. And I've just loved that process so much that it's ongoing. It's, you know, you're never going to reach a point where you're like, oh, I made it, I'm done. It's the journey of it. So.
Yeah, I love that. I recognize that in a lot of people who create success is they're curious, they're open-minded, like they want to keep learning, they want to keep growing. Because, you know, Tony Robbins said this a long time ago that, you know, how does he say it? He said progression creates fulfillment. So without progression, you start to feel less alive, less driven, less inspired. That's why it's important to always like want to be better and grow more and learn more. And it's not a negative thing. Some people say, oh, like, aren't you satisfied? When's enough going to be enough? Like if I just sat on the couch every day and I was like, I'm done, I did everything I was supposed to do, I'm good. Like, what about all this wasted potential? Like you said, what about all this wasted time? I could have given back and helped others. I could have learned new things that I could have passed on to other people. There's always, you know, different levels that we can experience. So I love that mentality. I think it's so important. I want to ask you a question because you mentioned talking to other amputees. Do you see a common theme in people's mentalities who have gone through similar things as you, or do you feel like you figured some stuff out that other amputees haven't that you can help them with? Like, I'm curious to understand, you know, what it's like to interact with other people who've gone through what you've experienced.
You know, I think it's funny because I sometimes get asked that question, and I would say it's the same as probably what you've experienced in your experience of talking to people, because it's just a different level of adversity of what they're going to have to overcome. Because just as it's hard for amputees to figure out how to take a step, it's hard for someone who's worked the same 9 to 5 for the last 30 years and wants something else to actually take a leap and do something different. It's just a different kind of hard. And I think for amputees, it's shifting their mindset from you are not a victim. Like this, it can equally suck that this happened, but it doesn't have to define how you move forward. And if anything, if you can change your mindset, you know, to say this with love, not to throw it in their face of what they've gone through, but if you can eventually change what has happened into an advantage, because you're going to have the edge. If you can figure this out, you're going to have so much like edge in life because you can figure things out. You know that you can do hard things. And there's nothing quite like the adrenaline that comes from like doing something that you thought was not possible and then getting on the other side of it. And you're like, holy crap, I just did that. What else am I capable of? And so of course, like I encounter some amputees who like they've grabbed the bull by the horns and they're living life and they're doing incredible things and it's awesome. And then, you know, and that doesn't even have to look like this crazy life. It's difficult to live life without a prosthesis. So literally, you know, that can look like you just want to go on hikes with your friends or whatever that would be. It's more about your mentality and how, you know, you choose to handle yourself in life. And I've also talked to amputees who, you know, it's been hard. I have these conversations with them and they're like, I wish I could do X, Y, Z. And then I say, that's actually possible. Like you're not it's going to be hard, but you're not like shooting for the moon here. This is how you do it. And there's a choice to sit back and say, no, that's too hard. And those are definitely frustrating encounters that I've had. But it's what humans have dealt with since day one, whether we're going to pick ourselves up and overcome or not. And that's just how we're
and that's
wired.
why it's so important that you're so transparent and you're all over social media, because you can be that example for other people. They might need to see hundreds of your videos, and it might be one thing you say or one thing they see, and they're like, you know what? I've been watching her for years. If Amy can do it, maybe I can do it too. That's why I started sharing my story on social media, because I knew that over time I could get people to change the way they think about themselves and then live their lives. And that was the ultimate goal. So I want to ask you a question about that too. I mean, in any area of life, you're going to have people that have the right mindset and people that don't. But obviously, like being an amputee, you're faced with different challenges that I guess like other people can't fully grasp and understand. I do believe, though, the more severe the adversity you go through in life, there's an equal opportunity for growth that wouldn't be possible. Like I know for me, and I'm sure for you too, I wouldn't be here today and have the life I have had I not gone through all the challenges and adversity growing up. Like I wouldn't have the same drive, the same perspective. I wouldn't be able to experience the same level of gratitude. So I feel blessed for all of my adversity. And it's crazy how in hindsight we can say that. Would you say the same thing is true for you?
Oh, absolutely. I think I actually just posted something similar on Instagram the other day. Oh, I think I
can still hear you. Your screen's a little frozen, but I think it'll come back.
Here we go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah. Your video just cut out for a second.
Oh, let's see here. Oh, goodness.
Sometimes down at the bottom, there's an area of where it says settings. I don't know. Did you get an alert or a call or something?
No alert. I don't know. My Wi-Fi, I wonder if they're doing something in the area. Can you still hear me as I'm speaking?
I can hear you. We can keep chatting if the video
I was going to
comes
say,
back
we'll
on.
just keep chatting and I'll take it. I'll make sure that nothing is happening here. But yeah, so let's see here. Well, but what was that? Sorry, do you mind repeating that last part of the question?
Yeah. So I was just saying, like, I truly believe that the more severe adversity that people go through, there's an equal opportunity for growth and higher level awareness and emotions that we wouldn't experience otherwise. Like for me, I would not be as grateful as I am today. I wouldn't have the perspective that I do. I wouldn't be as driven. I would never have achieved the level of success I have today. So there we go. I can see you now. Would you say the same thing is true for you? Like I look at my adversity in life and everything I went through as a blessing. That was in disguise at the time. Do you feel the same way about the stuff you've gone through in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, not that I would look back and want to repeat certain experiences by any means, but they've only helped me. And I do want to point out, because I think there also can be, sometimes people can assume that adversity makes you stronger. And it certainly can, but what I would say is it's an opportunity that presents itself. But plenty of people, unfortunately, don't take that opportunity, and they choose to see themselves as a victim and a reason to step down. And so there always has to be intentionality. Like I talk about that quite a bit. Oh, can you still hear me?
I could hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure what's going on over here. My computer is just not happy. But anyway, but yeah, I think that it's always a choice and intentionality. And like, even when I started, I said, I didn't have a specific end goal in sight, but I was very intentional with how I started speaking to myself and like the little daily actions that I chose to do. And those are the things that truly made all the difference. It wasn't these like drastic decisions that I changed my life overnight. It was choosing to wake up and speak about myself differently. So yeah, those small things really add up into life-changing decisions.
What you just said was really good and really profound. Adversity doesn't necessarily make you a better human being. In fact, I would assume most people that they go through a lot of adversity, they don't always come out on top. Like a lot of people, life beats them down. They go through adversity and it warps their mindset in a negative way. And maybe they turn to drugs and alcohol. Maybe They become depressed, and they don't get the lesson. They don't acquire the growth. So it's an opportunity for a level up. It definitely is. But you got to take it. You got to recognize that this could be an opportunity to help me in my life. That was really good insight. And I love the way you explain that, because it's so true. I want to ask you maybe a tough question too, as like, what were some of those tough times in your life growing up, whether it was as a kid or in school? Like, you alluded to it earlier, being self-conscious growing up. I know that most kids are, and I can imagine that it was challenging for you. What were some of those harder, more difficult moments that you look back on right now?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I definitely went through your typical, middle school stage where when I was a kid, I remember in elementary school, like one of my first distinct memories was my school decided to start, second grade. It was time for swim lessons. And I told my mom that I wanted to swim with my classmates. And so she came in and spoke to my class about like, hey, she's going to take her leg off and it's going to be really tempting to stare. And this is, like this is something that's different that you probably haven't seen, but she's still your friend. And, like those kinds of situations that I certainly remember since a young age, and realizing, like recess, I couldn't really keep up with my friends. And but for the most part, all of it was just, I felt like a relatively normal kid. I was just figuring it out. And then, of course, like middle school and high school, there was often just, it was more of a feeling of there are things that I could do and there are things that I couldn't do. And I very much took the assumption of like, I love, studying things like performance mindset and growth mindset. And I very much had a performance mindset of this is what I'm naturally good at, which was for me music. And because of my leg, I will always be unathletic. And so I very much held on to that. And, I never tried anything athletic. So I'd throw a ball and it was horrendous. And, be like, oh, that equals unathleticism. I shouldn't do this. And then I remember distinctly after I moved to Nashville, I, started at that boxing gym and a trainer asked to teach me how to kickbox. And I laughed at him and I was like, okay, sir, like I understand that, we want to do cool things here, but I have, my prosthesis won't let me balance, all of these things. I had all of these excuses. And essentially, he said something along the lines of, Amy, of course you're going to be bad at it. You haven't done it before. And I know that sounds very cliche, or basic, I guess. But in my mind, I was like, I should expect to be bad at something, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be bad at it forever. It just means that I need to stay with it for a little while. And that shift in my mindset made me way more willing to, quote unquote, look stupid. And I realized that my biggest fear to overcome wasn't my inability to be athletic or be perceived that way, but to simply be okay with trying something new in the midst of feeling inadequate and scared. And when I got over that fear, it was like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, that's why on my socials, like I try to show people not just the end result, but the process, because it's like, as long as you don't quit, you will eventually get better. Like that's how practice works. And those.
We might have lost Amy. I think she was having a tough internet connection. Let me stand by for a minute or two and see if we can get her back on. We got anybody on here that wants to chat while we're waiting for Amy? Any viewers? Have you guys been watching this live? If so, takeaways, feedback. I know Amy was saying that she had bad internet connection, but man, what a journey she's been on, and what an inspirational person. Let me see. I mean, here's the thing, you guys. The people that go through the hardest shit in life, if they don't back down and let it defeat them, they're the ones that become the strongest. And you got to remember that. Like whatever you're going through in your personal life, it can help you. All right, we got you back.
We got me back. I don't know what happened to my computer, but it literally just crashed on me. That's never happened.
It's okay. It's perfect. We're talking about adversity and overcoming challenges, and It
Yeah,
happens
me
every day
too.
in life, you know. One thing I
Exactly.
like that you were saying before you cut out
Hmm.
is that it was like a shift in your perspective, going from looking at yourself at being at a disadvantage because you're an amputee to realizing, hey, everybody that does Muay Thai the first time or kickboxing or whatever it is, they're not going to be an expert. Like, this is a conversation I have with my 13-year-old all the time. He gets discouraged because he's not doing good at basketball one day. And I go, hey, man, it was the off season. You didn't practice that much. This is your first practice. Like, watch how you feel in a couple more weeks. And by the end of the year, you're going to feel like the best player you've ever been. So it's so important for anyone to recognize that, right? It's like
Hmm.
when you start something, you shared this earlier, leave the ego at the door, go in there with an open mind and willing to just try it and put forth your best effort. And over time, it's amazing how much we can improve at things. So I love that. Okay, let's shift gears here too. I mean, you've been on an incredible journey. You're super inspiring. One of the first things I noticed when I went on your Instagram, and what is your Instagram too, so people can follow you? We'll
Yeah,
post it in the
it's
description, but
oh, thanks so much. It is one leg to stand on because you got to
okay.
use the joke a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I see your reels and stuff, and you're always, you're always drawing attention to it in a positive way. Like, a lot of your stuff is not like, I don't want to say joking, but it's kind of like calling people out, or you're using what some people would perceive a disadvantage in your favor. And I love that. It seems like you have a great attitude, a great mindset around being an amputee. And I love that. For me, that shows too. It shows, I don't want to use the word healing like you were ever not healed, but I think like loving yourself and being fully content with who you are and what God's blessed you with. Like, once we are able to fully and transparently share about things that other people would be scared to talk about, that's a really clear sign that we're comfortable with who we are and we've reached a certain level of maturity or growth. And I see that in you. And then I noticed that you're a first form athlete, right? So how did that transpire? Like, I know Andy Frisell is super inspiring for a lot of people. He has a great podcast, really exceptional individual. How did you get connected with his company, and what's that experience been like for you?
So all of that, it was quite a whirlwind, to be honest. So I started CrossFit in 2021, and I wasn't really expecting a lot from the experience, to be honest. It was just something new to try, and it happened to be the first year that they were hosting the adaptive games. And so I trained, and there's a lot of opportunity it being the first year, and I did better than expected, and actually ended up going to the games 8 months later. And so it was very unexpected. It was very new. I had lots to learn in that process. But, at the games, there was a video that, got caught on camera, and I posted it to my social media, and literally the video like changed my life. It went viral, and I had tons of opportunity that I just never anticipated. So about a month or so later, I was talking to, some companies, and I realized that if I wanted to make competing more of a profession, then that was an opportunity that had come my way. And so I decided to move forward with that. And so I partnered with several companies, and in that process, First Form reached out. I went to their headquarters to visit the following January, and signed with them about a month later. And it's been incredible. I mean, if you want to talk about a company that was built on values of hard work and living by example, like the people that work there truly embody the things that they say they believe. So,
I love that. And that's something that's lost in this world nowadays. A lot of people, they don't live in integrity with their word, and their values are not really like strong values that help people to thrive in life. So that's why I love how Andy Frisell has built his company and what he stands for. Have you, and I asked you this previously, like, when are we going to see you on his podcast, right? When are we going to get this message out to more people? So if he gets to see this episode, maybe he'll want to have you on his. But have you looked into getting on his podcast? Have you got to go there to HQ and work out or meet Andy in person?
I've been able to meet him in person, yes, briefly. But I mean, obviously, he lives by what he says. And, I've been with First Form. This is my third year with them. And so I've been able to go to HQ for, a few events. I actually hosted an event of my own there. We have not talked about the podcast yet. That would be a goal of mine, to be able to be on that one day with him. But being an HQ, like in general, has just been awesome. I mean, even
their workout space is beautiful and kind of one of a kind, in my opinion. So anytime that I have the opportunity to go there, it's a good experience.
Yeah, that's a good segue to talking about like the future and your aspirations. I'm a firm believer that like we got to call our shot and we got to put it out there as to what we want to do. One thing I want to share with you is like, I'm always aware of what that next level looks like for me and where I want to go. And I've been very intentional with every move I've made, everything I post on social media, the events I go to, the relationships I build, because I want to do everything in my power to bring that vision to life. So for you, right now you've been on this incredible journey and you've competed and now you're a first form athlete and you're getting a lot of exposure and attention online. What would that next, year, 3, 5 years look like for you in the professional sense?
It's a great question. I think there's two avenues that I want to continually grow in and that I really see happening over the next 3 to 5 years, as long as I stay with it, like we've talked about already today. But one, I've done a lot more speaking in the last 2 years in particularly, but I want to continually grow that avenue, and not just to speak to adaptive athletes or lower amputees or anything like that, but just sharing people similarly to what you've done. Like, you've had this experience and really a life like long journey, and now you're turning it around and not just sharing your story, but sharing it with the purpose of showing others how they can also do it. And when I speak, that is how I love to connect with an audience. Of, you don't have to be in CrossFit, you don't have to necessarily understand this world of fitness, although I would encourage everyone to get into that, certainly. But just understanding the feeling of waking up every day, choosing to be consistent, and of not quitting, and seeing what amazing things happen as a result. So, continually broadening my audience and the ability to share that story is definitely one of my big goals and ways that I want to grow. And I also, this past year, actually, I released a program for lower amputees. And it's funny how it kind of came about. I've been training individuals and groups for several years now. I have like a typical upper lower hypertrophy program that I have as a group program, and for like barbell work in a gym. And that's great, and I've loved having that experience with people. But I realized that there's a lot of workout programs out there, but there's very, very, very little available to the amputee community for people who don't really know how to learn to walk with their prosthesis and to take the next step. I found that a lot of times when people first lose their limbs, their knee-jerk reaction to encourage them, which is not bad, but it's to share like these really inspiring stories of people who have had their amputation for years. So I've had people use my videos to like send to a new amputee and be like, you can do it, this girl's doing XYZ. And while that can be coming from a good place, it's often very overwhelming, because it's like, hey, when you're in that spot, taking a step is hard. Like, people don't realize like the mental and physical capacity of that. And I realized like there's not a lot of people to meet those amputees in that place of like, maybe you finished physical therapy, your insurance can't cover any more sessions, and you want to be fit, but you don't even know what movements you should be working on. Like, you don't know how to squat properly. And so the program that I created was to meet amputees in that place. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about growing over the next year and several years, to not just help a few amputees here and there, but really I've talked to a lot of prosthetic clinics, which that's where people get fitted for their prosthetic legs. And just talked about with partnering with them of like, how can we like reach as many people as possible with this, because I sincerely see the need for it. Because I grew up in a small town and I didn't have a lot of people to look to for an example, or like workout programs. There's not a lot of trainers that are used to working with adaptive athletes or anything like that. And so just being able to serve as a resource based on my experience and my knowledge as a trainer is something that I'm really excited about. So
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people out there that you can help, and you have the results and the experience to be able to help them. So we kind of talked about this offline too. It's like, you want to speak, you want to grow your coaching program, you want to make a positive change in the world. I love that, because you have the same heart to serve as I do. So it's really about, okay, I'm gonna be more overt and more just in your face about my goals and talk about it more and put it out there. I think right now you could probably get on some really big podcasts to reach a lot of viewers that will help you to reach those people that need a coach like you. And then having a specific program, not just the fitness component, because I think you got that down, obviously, but I would assume that somebody who's gone through a recent amputation or they've had some accident or something, it's also traumatic. It's also emotionally and psychologically affecting them. So putting together some type of mindset course. So imagine if someone signs up with you and they get access to your mindset course, all the lessons and things you've learned, how you overcame certain challenges in your life. They could work through that. They could do the fitness side of things, and then having weekly coaching calls with you in a group where everyone can talk and build community and rapport and get that support. Something like that would be so valuable. And that's really the way I designed my program early on. It was mindset, fitness, nutrition coaching, but it was all the members that were collectively in the program coming together on those weekly calls that made it feel that much more special and dynamic, because now you're in an environment where you're like, these are my people. They get me. They've gone through the same things I've gone through. They have the same goals and similar aspirations as I do. And that's just like fuel for their drive and their growth. So I think establishing something like that, I think you could just grow it massively. And then the more that you're speaking, I mean, people need to hear your message. I think that your message will be received very well from people who obviously aren't working out, that need to develop that mental toughness and those habits. People that have a lot on their plate, like parents, business owners, entrepreneurs that want to achieve at the highest level, but for whatever reason, they're limiting themselves by the way they think and talk to themselves. I think that your story could really resonate with them, because you're like, look, there's no limitations here. All I'm focused on is my potential, not what I can't do, what I can do. And I think your message would really stand out to them. So, I mean, you got all the ingredients. You got all the ingredients for success. You got all those pieces. Now it's just about putting them together and really putting it out there to the world. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're working on it. That's the goal and what I've been working towards. So I'm excited.
Yeah. And I see it. And you said something a little bit ago, and it's so true. You keep showing up. You keep showing up. You keep sharing positive messages. You keep showing people who you are and documenting your journey, building relationships. I kind of break it down into like four quadrants or four areas. And Bradley talks about this a lot. He talks about, if you want to be successful, you need the right mindset, the right habits, and the right skill set. And it's almost in sequential order. Like, without the right mindset, nothing else is going to happen. You have to have that mentality of what it takes to be a winner, always thinking about the good in your life, being positive, your self-talk. Then that allows you to establish the right habits. Because just getting to the gym for some people is an internal battle. And if you can train your mind to do the tough things, right, like we talked about earlier, you're on the path to success. But then what skills do you need to develop to really become valuable? And this is what helped me to take my prison experience and everything I learned and actually turn it into a coaching program that was valuable for other people, is the skills I developed. So creating content online and knowing how to market myself, getting good at having real in-depth conversations with people in DMs and on the phone, which people call sales calls. But for me, it was really just connecting on a deeper level and building relationships with people. And then being able to speak an articulate, powerful message that people can feel. Like, those three skill sets turn my passion and my vision into an actual viable business over time, and then things like writing a book, authoring a book, which I don't see. I didn't hear about your book yet. I want to read it. I want to read your book.
Yeah.
If you have, we talked about that, but then the fourth one is relationships, and relationships with the right people can just skyrocket you and your business and your life. I mean, for instance, we were talking about, like, if you got on Andy Frisella's podcast, or just having the right people in your corner over time, it makes a huge difference. For me, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the right people to support me, to teach me, to mentor me. And that's made a world of a difference. So those four areas, man, you've got all of them. You're right there. You're right there. And it's just a matter of time before the world really like sees you at an even higher level than you're already at. I could see it.
Awesome. Yeah, I fully agree. And I very much I love that you said that about the quadrant of people, because I think that people don't take that seriously enough. They either don't see the importance of being intentional about who you put in your corner, or they have the mindset of like, well, I'm just going to do this alone. I don't need anyone. And it's just not it. It's been my experience. There's been so many times that when it was time for me to level up, even if I knew in the back of my mind that it was time to do that, it was someone in my corner that loves me enough to tell me a hard truth that made me take the step. That, where there are times in my life, that was one of the biggest, I've talked about this on, multiple like podcasts before, but my brother-in-law actually called me out when I was a sophomore in college on a beach trip. And he was like, "Hey, you're not confident. Why aren't you confident?" And I didn't like what he had to say. And I kind of came back at him a little bit. And he was like, "No, like if you're looking for someone else to, bring the confidence out in you first, it's not going to happen," because he said it comes from you and people respond to the energy that you give. So if you feel like you're constantly getting these negative responses, it's because you're giving a negative energy, or you're being weird about your leg, you're making it this big deal. And that conversation like changed a lot of how I viewed myself, because I no longer saw it as a victim to what other people thought of me. I realized I had the power to change what people thought by changing what I thought. And it was one of the catalysts to start me on this journey. And ever since, I've been, even now I'll have certain times in my life where I'm dragging my feet with something or whatever. And it's the people that know me the most. Not everyone has the ability to speak into myself like that, but specific people that I know and trust that can speak to me and say, "Hey, you're wrong here," or "It's time for you to hold yourself to a higher level." And so I always tell people, be intentional with who you're around, of what they say, and learn how to filter out people that are not going where you want to go, and hold on fast to the people that truly care. So yeah.
Yeah, and what you said a second ago is really powerful. Like our own thoughts are projected onto other people. So if we're having negative thoughts about ourselves or whatever it is, people can feel that energy. They pick up on it. And if you can just focus, like this is why for me, the epitome of success is doing everything in my power every day to be proud of who I am and how I lived. Because if I do that, I'm feeling so grateful for how I'm living my life. That energy is being passed on to other people. So whether it's when I come home for my wife and kids and I'm just bringing that good, loving, infectious energy to them, or on a message on social media, like people really feel that. But if you're going through your day and you're not doing everything in your power to be your best self, and you have negative self-talk and internal dialogue that's not serving you, people pick up on that too. And they read it in your body language. 90% of our message is communicated through our body language. So this is really how to become influential, be a real leader, to create opportunities in life. It starts with you. You got to do the work on yourself. And this is why, like, I created this shirt, right? We're going to say the man or woman who refuses to quit cannot be stopped. It's so true. It sounds almost like cliche, but this is the hardest thing for people to do, is be consistent over time and keep showing up. And that's why I just document everything too, Amy, because I want people to know, like, look what I went through and where I come from. If I can create this life, anybody can. You just got to want it bad. You got to be willing to do the work, and you got to never quit and give up. Last question I want to ask you before we wrap this up. What do you want to be known for? Let's say that your day comes, right? You meet your maker, as they say. And all the stuff that you did while you were alive is now it's a legacy. It's a memory. What is the world going to remember Amy for, and what you did while you're here?
That I lived by example, that I embodied what I said I believed. And I think the older I get, the more I realize that talk is important, but you will know people by their action over their words and the fruit of their lives. And a lot of what has driven me, even posting on social media, it's been a cycle of accountability. If I'm telling people this, then I need to live it out and show, not just say with my words, but show them what it looks like in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I would hope that when people think of me, they think Amy lived out what she said. And if people say that, I'm good, whatever the results of that would look like.
I love that. Well, usually the byproduct of that is a lot of success in a lot of areas of life, right? Like living in integrity with your word and your values. It's something that people, I don't think, do a lot nowadays, or it's not as important. But I'm right there with you. I think that that's the most important thing, because again, you got to be able to go to sleep at night knowing that you're giving your all to this life, and that's how you create inner peace. And the goal is to have inner peace and feel successful right now, even before the massive speaking engagements or the massive accolades. Like, I want to have that inner peace and contentment with who I am right now. So I love that you said that. Last thing I want to share is, you're speaking a lot. I want to see more of those clips online.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see that. I know your audience does too. And I hope we get to connect at an event in person or something. If I feel like there's an event that comes my way and I know it'd be a good fit for you, I'm going to put your name out there. I'm going to put your name in the hat, because a lot of people have helped me too and like done that for me. And I've also reached out to a lot of event coordinators and just planted that seed in their mind. Like, hey, I'm ready. I want to impact your audience. I got a good message. I'm going to pour my heart and soul to that message. Like, give me a shot. And I just would do that over and over and over. And now, the opportunities are here. So can't wait to see more of them for you and just where you're going to go in the next couple of years. I appreciate you being on here and sharing with us and just being so honest and open.
Of course. Thank you so much. And I appreciate, again, the opportunity. Thanks for sticking with me through the technology issues, but we're here and we still said what we needed to say.
100%. Yeah, that's nothing. We could do crazy workouts and overcome all this stuff in life, but when it comes to the tech, sometimes that's like our kryptonite, But yeah, love your story and message. Can't wait to continue to connect with you and watch you grow.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.